Welcome to the With Love, Your Mental Health podcast.
Welcome back. Today, we're going to talk about a heavy hitter. Today, we're talking about trauma. But first, let's get into our emotion wheel. Hey, Kiana,
Hi, Denise.
how are you feeling today?
Today, I am feeling hopeful, very hopeful, and creative. How are you feeling?
Okay. Today, I am feeling powerful and serene. Of course, there's just always a lot going on, but I feel like in this stage, I have just found a very calm state or just like at peace throughout the different storms. So, very serene, but then also powerful. Of course, when you get your hair done, new cut, new me, like we're just going to go conquer the world. So, today, I'm feeling serene and powerful. So, trauma,
Mhm. I'm a,
heavy hitter.
it's a heavy hitter and it's subjective because it's just everybody's trauma is different. Some
Mhm.
trauma can look like it could be from stubbing a toe to being attacked. Like it's and everything else in between.
Okay, so there are several different definitions of trauma, but the one that I like the most is when people explain trauma as like basically you have the ability to cope with things, but trauma is when you don't have the like it's above your ability to cope with it. So sometimes it might be like a car crash, it could be like just something sudden, earthquakes, like things like that. But also just when you are your brain goes into flight or fright. But it's not able to come back down afterwards. For most things, you based on your coping abilities, it's able to come back down. But with trauma, it kind of stays in that survival mode and not able to regulate itself.
Another way to look at trauma is like a severe emotional response to a stressful event, and again, the word stressful, it looks different for everybody. So something that may affect one event can happen to three different people and affect three different people in completely different ways. So the way that you are responding to it, whether you're able to just, I don't want to say brush it off because that's not healthy either, but either brush it off, manage it, where it's like, okay, I know something happened to me, or completely shut down from it, are just like three different. Those are just three different examples. Trauma is the. It's not one size fits all. It's not one size fits all. So we'll just keep that in mind for the remainder of this episode.
Yeah, and I think that's really big. And I want to, remind people and really highlight what you're saying because we have to give people grace. So often, people go through things and like, oh, well, I went through worse or I went through that too and I'm fine. They should be fine too. But trauma is really based on your ability to cope. And some people's or everyone's ability to cope is different. So it might be that this situation didn't impact you as severely because you are able to cope with more things, whereas they have not developed those skills to cope with it. So it was more traumatic for them. So really just giving people grace and space to, deal with the things that they've experienced in a safe space without feeling like they're judged or their feelings aren't valid. Because like you said, it's not one size fit all. It's really based on that person and their ability to just go through life and cope with the things that happen.
I think another important part of what you just said is like where you said like the, oh well, I went through it. We have to define what's normative. A lot of things are not normal. And so just because something has happened to you or it has happened to you multiple times, that does not make it normal. It's normal to you. So then maybe I can deal with it better or it doesn't affect me as much. But that doesn't mean that it is normal to everybody else. So that's why like certain words we're using like stressful or coping or like learning and stuff like that. Because some people don't have the skills because something probably shouldn't have happened, right? So that's another part of it too, with like being able to give grace to people and to yourself also. You have to give grace to ourselves first. So a lot of times we don't give grace to ourselves. So then how would I know how to give it to somebody else? I don't, because I don't have that practice.
Yeah. And I do want to highlight also that, statistics say that 70% of people around the world, like globally,
Mhm.
will experience at least one type of traumatic experience or event at least once in their life. So trauma is not normal, but a lot of people experience traumatic things. So again, in every dealing with people and again with yourself, remember to give that grace because of course it doesn't have trauma. People don't have trauma written on their forehead. You don't know what people went through or have been through or are currently going through. So understand that some people are just like when you're in the grocery store, some people are stuck in a survival mode, or like their brain is trying to calm down and it can't. Like a lot of people are on edge because of the things that they experience.
And like today, we're gonna keep it to just like general trauma because again, it can be so many things. I mean, for some people, like a pet passing might be traumatic to them, and for others who are not pet people, they want to look at you like, well, what's wrong with you? You know,
Hmm.
but like that's what that person feels. So we cannot. It's not about judging or trying to make it, and it's also not a contest. I feel like I see that so much. Like, well, I went through this. Well, I went through this, and now we're in the depression Olympics. Like, what are we doing? Like, we don't have to. It's not whose is worse. How about we figure out, well, this is how I cope. Maybe you can try that. Like a different way to just have certain conversations. Like sometimes you'll talk to people and it's like, well, yeah, this happened to me. And it's like, well, let me tell you what happened to me. Okay, I guess.
Hmm.
Like, I just,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be it's not a contest of who went through the worst thing. Maybe we can switch it, like even just regular conversations to, well, this is how I coped. How did you, this is the resource I use. Maybe you can use it. So.
Yeah, and I think that that clash kind of happens a lot in relationships and friendships where it's like whose trauma is worse, so who traumas matters more.
Mhm.
Like even though we both experience trauma and we both are coping through the different experience that we've been through, you feel like yours is worse, so I have to change my behavior and the things that I do to accommodate your trauma, but it's not as severe. My trauma isn't as severe to you, so you don't feel the need to do the same to me. And I just want to be very clear that that is like a toxic cycle and a toxic relationship. So please avoid that at all costs. There should be relationships where we meet each other halfway or like where we are and accept both of our traumas, not like you said, trauma Olympics or depression Olympics, trying to figure out who deserves more grace, who deserves what based on what they've been through. So we basically talked about the definition of trauma, but I also want to make it clear that trauma affects your body and your mind. So your mind, your brain wasn't created or developed to be in this survival mode 24/7, but some people it is. And that changes how your brain develops, it changes how it operates. So it's not just like, this thing happened to someone and they're holding on to it. Their body, their mind has changed because of it. Even your body, sometimes you think you're fine, that you're over it, but then something happens and you start feeling different things. You start sweating, your underarms itching, and all kind of things, and you're like, "What's happening to me?" But it's triggering prior relationships or prior experiences that happened that you might have thought that you forgot about or let go, but you didn't do the work for it to actually to heal from it. So your body and your brain kind of holds on to that until you do the actual steps to heal from it, not just pushing it to the side thinking that it doesn't matter anymore.
Because sometimes people don't know that they are traumatized until they're triggered, right? So like you're saying, you don't know it. Sometimes you don't know it until you do the work. But I think just a like a regular example. Let me give you an example, right? A Let's say you get chased by a dog. This is my favorite example because I feel like at least one time in everybody's life they've been chased by something. Right? So let's say you get chased by a dog. You do not know how fast you can run until you get chased by something. Okay? Your feet literally they grow wings. You don't even know how fast you can run until you get away, right? But in the time when you're running, sometimes you may not even remember that, like how you got away from a situation, and until your body calms down. Now, let's say a week later, right now, I got chased by a dog. I'm afraid, right? A week later, I'm sitting in my house, I'm relaxing, watching TV, and the dog comes on the TV. All of a sudden, my heart starts racing. What's happening is the last time my brain saw this dog, I had to run. It had to literally go into survival mode. And the survival mode is not just like two words we're using. Your brain literally goes into like fight or flight mode. So your heart starts racing, adrenaline, cortisol, all of those things start pumping through your body. Your brain starts to literally shut down parts of the body that it doesn't feel fit for survival at the time, which is where certain anxiety symptoms and stuff come from. So again, if I'm laying in my house and I see something that triggers me and I'm not even really consciously aware, that is what the adrenaline is doing. Adrenaline is not helpful if I'm laying in my home where I'm safe. It's helpful if I'm fighting or running, right? But now this situation that happened, now this is triggering a response. So until I maybe do a breathing exercise or consciously remember, like, okay, hold on, no, I'm safe. I'm not in that space anymore, and literally do the work to calm my body down, that's what's gonna happen every time. So that's just like a surface level example of everything else. But
Hmm.
when things happen, these that's what a trigger makes you feel like you are right back wherever whatever happened. When the first time you heard bad news, saw something, went through something, and which we'll get into later as far as the coping and stuff like that, of how to deal with that.
Yeah, but I mean, I kind of want to, like, because you brought it up, I kind of want to speak on it now. Like, some of the things that you're saying is emotional regulation, self-awareness. So being able to identify, like, okay, I am like feeling anxious, and feeling that, but then also knowing the facts, but I am safe. So
Yeah,
what do I need to do to regulate my emotions in this situation?
yeah,
But first, you have to be able to identify your emotions. So really tapping in with yourself, doing the mindfulness activities and stuff like that, so you can track how you're feeling and know what to do to kind of regulate yourself.
yeah. Agreed. And I think that, like, because I know we talked about this last episode as far as like coping skills and like how we, like us personally, figure out like what our baseline is. And I want to make another point. I believe that people should have like practices that they do regardless if they're triggered, regardless if they've had trauma. I think there should just be things that you, and then in that sense, I don't think they're coping skills. I think they're just habits. They're just things that I do. If it's that I have breathing exercises, I take 2 minutes when I wake up and realize that I'm still here, right? Thank God, and I take a couple of deep breaths before I get into whatever routines that I may have. And it, because then when I have that, I have the muscle memory for it. Like you were saying, trauma, like different things affect your body. They affect your body. You don't know how they're going to affect your body. That's the problem. We just don't know, which is why we can do we can do little things to prepare us. And it's not a thing of like I have to do this so that when this happens, I can respond this way. That's also how we create anxiety. It's these are the practices I have. This is how I take care of myself, and that's it.
So now we could like kind of get into how unhealed trauma shows up every day, for everyday life, but also relationships. And I think for me personally, a big one has been just through the relationships. Like sometimes you notice that, or you have to be self-aware to notice that sometimes the way you're dealing with people is a response to your previous trauma. I
Yeah.
think about getting married and all the things, submitting to your husband, and like trusting your partner. But I know when I went through therapy, after like just different relationships that I've been through, it's important for me to regain trust in myself because of the trauma that I went through with certain people. I stopped trusting myself.
Right.
So I had a hard time trusting the people that I was with. Um, but just going through therapy and doing the work, you learn how to regain trust in yourself so that you can regain trust in the people that you're dealing with in your relationships, by also knowing like the facts. So knowing, who you are now compared to who you are at that time, and trusting that I wouldn't be with someone, or I no longer allow myself to be around people who cause me harm. Okay, so Kiana, I guess now let's kind of talk about how does unhealed trauma show up in everyday life and relationships.
Okay, so there are 5 dimensions that I'm going to talk about today, which are interrupted. That's what I'll say. 5 dimensions of our functioning that are interrupted when a trauma occurs. And the first is safety. So when something happens to us, right, our most of the time it's my safety. And the the issue of the why it affects us is because of distorted thought patterns. Cognitive distortions, distorted thought patterns are any deviation from what your normal thought patterns are. So if something happens to me and now I do not feel safe, it's not only that I don't feel safe, it's that the world is not safe. So there are personal ways of thinking about it where I'm not safe in my own skin, and also I'm just not safe in the world. um that's just really an unhealthy way to think, because how would you have capacity for anything else? So safety is one, trust is another one, and I will say all of these go hand in hand. So trust, if something happens to me and I don't feel safe, I may not trust myself, I don't trust anyone. It's unrealistic to not trust anyone in the world. Like, we human beings are created for fellowship. So we have to have some kind of relationship with one another.
Yeah, I remember there was a time that I had a client and she was sexually assaulted or like had sexual trauma. And
Mhm.
because of that, she didn't feel safe. But she also felt like her distortive thought was that she can't keep herself safe because she, felt like she put herself in this situation. So
Mhm.
she felt like she couldn't keep herself safe and she didn't trust herself to keep herself safe. And as a result, like she was very anxious when it came to going in public, and she stayed home
Yep.
as much as possible. So it was a process for her to learn to trust herself,
Mhm.
like remember that she can keep herself safe by
Yes.
remembering the times that she did versus the one time that someone took advantage, and
Exactly.
not changing her whole lifestyle because of this one experience. But it takes a lot of work.
It takes a lot of work, and but I feel like the number one thing is to remember that, like, when something happens to you, it is a natural, like, thought pattern for us to blame ourselves, right? If I didn't, if this, if that. The what ifs are a really dangerous place to exist. They are a really dangerous place to exist because whatever happened has happened. So you have to learn yourself again and teach yourself that, and give, and that's why we keep talking about giving yourselves grace. You have to
Mm,
give yourself grace in order to say, like, I'm learning myself again. And one way, another way to think about it is like, it when something positive happens, it's really easy, right? It's really, I got a new job, I got a promotion, or I whatever, I learned a new skill, or I made new friends, whatever that looks like. It's easier to adjust in that way because it's positive, but you still have to learn yourself. So if it's that I have a new position, I have to figure out maybe what my schedule looks like in this new position, or what managing my social life looks like now that I have new friends, or whatever the case may be. All these are positive, but it still takes adjustment.
mm,
So it's on both sides. So the same way that we do it when we're excited is another way, like, we can think of it in another way to do it when it's not so positive, so that I can make it positive. So that, what are the things that I overlooked, not blaming myself, what are the things that I may have overlooked, or the things that I just didn't know any better at the time, and now I can implement those things. So that's
yeah.
how you push against distorted thought patterns as well.
Yeah, and I also want to make sure that we highlight, maybe for adults more so it's, what did I overlook? But there are a lot of children who have went through traumatic experiences and internalize it.
Yeah.
And with my work with them, it has always been like reminding them like you are 5. Whose
Yeah.
responsibility was it to keep you safe? So now
Mhm.
at 18, 19, 20, you are internalizing all these things and thinking it was your
Right.
fault. Well, you are a child. It
Correct.
was not your fault.
Right.
It was you were not the adult in the situation. You were
Mhm.
not the person that was supposed to keep you safe
Yeah,
at 5 years old.
exactly.
So really remembering the facts, because I think
Yes.
sometimes that distortive thought patterns, it's easy for those to like be the first thing that comes up,
Mhm.
but for most of us we've experienced so many other things, or
Mhm.
so many other things are true. So when these thoughts come up, you have to intentionally put the whole story, like replay the whole story, like we're gonna go here, we're gonna
Let's
replay
do
all
it.
of it. Like,
Correct.
don't just stay on this one thought. Like, we're going to go through all of it, go through everybody that played a part, everybody was there, everybody who did not do what they were supposed to do,
Mhm.
so that we're not thinking like, oh, this is on me, this is my fault, and that it's just a singular thing. Most times it's not.
It's not. It's not. And I do want to mention, like, for when you say facts, facts are, or another way that I like use when I say it in my sessions, is evidence.
Mhm.
Evidence is something that actually happened. It is not my thought, it is not my the way that my memory it is what has actually happened. And it's also good use for a coping skill for anxiety as well, because when we're thinking about anxiety, we're thinking of one of the quickest ways to, like, combat anxiety thoughts is what is most likely to happen. So, what is most likely to happen is the positive outcomes that have happened the hundreds of times before, not the
Mhm.
one thought that, again, it just keeps going. So, like you said, if we're going to talk about it, let's talk about all the other times, not just this one time. Let's talk about all the other times you managed your triggers well. Let's talk about all the other times you communicated well, except for that one time. Or let's talk about all the other times you kept yourself safe. except for the one time, again, not where you didn't keep yourself safe, but where someone invaded my safety. Like, and we have to be, I'm real big on wordplay because it's very easy to go into the like it's my fault, and that and blame yourself.
Yeah. But at the same time, I do want to add, although it's definitely like the thing is not to blame yourself or take full responsibility for the situation, and there's also an opportunity for us to learn from these experiences to see if there's something that we overlooked or something that we could do
Yeah.
differently in the future,
Yeah.
not because what happened was solely my fault,
Right.
but I do have to recognize like this is a possibility. So not the biggest possibility, but there is a 5% chance. And because of
Mhm.
that, how can I be more aware?
Yeah. And it's accountability. So accountability and blame cannot exist in the same place. If I did something to somebody, if Jenny says, "Hey, I really didn't appreciate that you do that," and I say, "Well, what do you mean by that? That's not even how I'm feeling like I'm being blamed," versus to say, "My bad, girl, I ain't even mean that like that. I'm so sorry." Because then I'm able to say, I'm a person, I'm able to make mistakes, and then we have space. But if I'm feeling like she's blaming me for something, I feel blamed, I can't take accountability, because again, they can't exist in the same space. Because now with the blame, I'm trying to defend myself
Mm-hmm.
versus to be able to listen and say, this action that was not meant for this outcome had that outcome. So now we need to talk about it so that we could move on, so that it doesn't happen again. Versus like, well, girl, I ain't even mean it like that. Like, why you tripping? Like that's not gonna work, So it's about self accountability as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So the third point is power and control. Now this is a big one. This is a big one because, and that's why I said earlier, like people don't sometimes, like, even if they haven't experienced it, you still have certain habits. Power and control, the distorted thought that goes with that is that I have to control everything. That is not real. Okay. That is impossible. You cannot control everything. And the shift to that is to continue with all of what we're saying, but focus on what you can control. And one coping skill that I really like work with people and tell them is like, split a piece of paper. And if you feel like you're able, list, even looking around your room, all the things that you can't control, or at least 10 things you can't control. And then on the other side of that paper, all the things you can. And it doesn't really seem like you get 10, but it's very easy to get 10 things you can control, because you can control yourself head to toe. I can control what I look at, I can control what I say, I can control what I'm hearing, I can control if I want to do stand on my head in the corner, if I can control if I want to look at TV. Like, if you list it out and think of it in a very like small way, you'll get a longer list. And mastering these things will help me manage the other things that I can't control, especially other people, which we cannot control.
Yeah, I think I see this one come up a lot in relationships, like with
Mhm.
that whole woman, man, like that whole dynamic and trusting the man and submitting to him and his
Mhm.
leadership and stuff like that. And I think sometimes as females, like we have been hurt or like been through traumatic things with males in the past, and because of
Mhm.
that, we're in a new relationship, but kind of taking our old trauma on this new person.
Mhm.
Like, I can't trust you because I need to be in control, because the last time I gave up my control
Right.
or I trusted this person, he did this, this, and this. So now,
Right.
because of this, although I do love you, I do want to be with you, I do want to move forward with you, I still need a little bit of control, because the last time I gave up my control, I got hurt.
Right.
And I think, that's something that we really have to work on, because, like you said, we're meant to be in relationship with people, and people can only take so much of like hurt and things that they didn't cause.
Mhm.
But even when they talk about like, when we talk about like being single, that's really the time to really look at all of the things that you've been through and heal from them, not
Mhm.
just pretend like they don't exist by suppressing them, but really dig deep down and like really think about the different experiences
Mhm.
you've been through and how that has impacted you and impacted your thoughts, your relationships with others, how you relate to others, how you
Right.
communicate, how you trust, all of the things. Because it's not fair
Yeah.
to beat somebody up for something that they didn't do, but it's also like self-sabotage,
Mm-hmm.
because while you're trying to control and protect yourself, which is great, I get it, like I've been there,
Yeah.
there's a healthier way to do things. Even
Yeah.
if you just say like, I want to trust you right now, but I'm having a hard time,
Mm-hmm.
like just having the that's one of the skills that we'll talk about next, when it comes to trauma. But like again, being able to identify your feelings and then say what you need. So like,
Right.
I want to trust you, but I'm struggling right now, so that your partner knows that.
Right. And I think the another important point to your point is that trust is a choice when it comes to other people. And I don't think we think of it that way, or love either, right? Because when you do, like, yes, human beings were created for fellowship, but it also requires endurance. And sometimes I may not like you. I may not want to look at you, but I'm remembering what I'm rooted in, which is the love I have for you. So then I'm going to keep going. But when it comes to trust, trust is it's a choice that you have to make over and over again. It's that so like you said, like the last time I gave it up, and that's where I feel like accountability comes into place. Where if it is where I just gave all of it away without like, why, what made me do that?
Yeah,
And also, what about the person showed me that they were like that they had earned it. So and again, like you said, when you have this single time, that's the time to do it. So when I'm reflecting, I can look back and say, like, you know what, he actually did nothing. He did nothing to earn any part of
exactly.
it. So then now I get to establish. And okay, I say this to my clients all the time, and I know they look at me when I'm like I'm crazy, but I feel like those, like, when you have like free space and free time, to me, like when I see people clear space, I get so excited because I'm like, now you get to decide. You get to decide in, and I know we're using like dating because it's just the easiest example, but even in like platonic friendships, like, what does that look like for me? So if I'm talking about myself to a guy, like, I like books, I like talking, I like doing puzzles and creative things. So if he's hearing me, then he'll say, well, let's go to the bookstore, let's talk about this, like, you know what I mean, like, those are the things, because he will be hearing me, and vice versa for whatever it is that he likes to do. But if I'm telling you that I don't like scary movies, and you say, hey, do you want to go on a movie date and see this horror film, you're not listening. So why would I then turn around and trust you? So
Mm.
that's where the accountability comes in, because we have to think about and like and manage our excitement, which I have found myself saying quite a bit to the girls lately. Manage your excitement and really like take a step back and see, like, what is this person doing in order for me to trust them? Well, how have they earned my trust? How have they earned, or not even earned, like, but like, how do I feel safe around them? How
Mm-hmm.
do I feel like, and not that I'm in control, but how do they control themselves around me, and do I feel in control around them? So,
Yeah.
and again, platonic relationships, like whatever kind of relationships, just relation with other people, those are things that you know could be helpful, will be helpful.
Yeah, I also think though, like having realistic expectations of what that will look like.
Yeah.
So you proving that I can trust you does not mean that I will still never get hurt. You might
Right.
still get
Oh.
hurt, but you know that it was not this person's intention, because you know their character. You know that they are trustworthy, but they're still a person, so they might still make a mistake.
They
But you
will.
know that you can trust them because they do consider you, they do love you, they do, take the time to get you to know you. They've done all of the things, but that does not mean that they're still perfect. Just like for us, the same grace that we need, for the times that we trusted ourselves and messed up, give that same grace to them.
Yes.
And again, don't take the one time they messed up means, oh no, you're no longer trustworthy, but you still have to look at their character and the
Mhm.
actions throughout the relationship or throughout the friendship.
Yeah. It's like you were saying, the whole story. You got
Yeah.
to, we cannot look at one part of the story. But to that, and then I'll get to the next point, but it's when I talk to people about, like, even like married couples or people who come, for whatever struggles they're having, I always go back to like the foundation. Like, what did you build the relationship on? And understanding that, like, if someone breaks my trust or they hurt my feelings, right, let's move it to more like emotional, like if they hurt my feelings, if I'm knowing this person, right, yes, I still have my feeling, but I can have my sad feeling or hurt and still remember that, like, this person still had their best intention for me. So two
Mm-hmm.
things can be true at once. So but I know that's hard when we have our feelings, because the feeling is like the loudest thing in the room, but that's where mood management and all the stuff we're talking about comes into play. So you still have your feeling and allow it to pass. And again, but again, trauma will say, remember all those other times that it was negative. Remember all those other times that and this is why you shouldn't trust yourself. And this is why you're not safe. So and again, the triggers bring you right back to that time. But that's why you have to like figure out what, even from what we're saying, like, where is it that I struggle? And if it is that I struggle in all of these areas that we're talking about, it's okay. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't think there's something wrong with you. It's okay, because sometimes it's like one skill that can help you with all of them. These are just the points and the things that make it relatable. So it's not to make you panic, it's to make you aware.
Yeah, and to promote or to get you excited about doing the work,
Mm-hmm.
because the outcome is worth it.
Oh
So
yeah.
when something happens in my future relationship, I have overcome my trauma and healed and done the work. So I know that I wouldn't be in a relationship with someone who would hurt me, because I knew what to look for. I did all of the things. I was aware. I was self-aware of myself, but also very aware of what this person was giving and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I won't allow those distorted thoughts. They might still come, but I like you said, the facts, the evidence, the work. Like I know I was slow in dating them and getting to know them, to know
Yeah.
their character and all of the things. And I know me. So I know I wouldn't be in a relationship with someone who would intentionally hurt me. So it's like you're able to just handle the situations differently. So like you said, it's really not to get overwhelmed or to beat yourself up. Is really to get you excited about doing the work, because the
Yeah.
outcome is, like I said, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. Speaking of self, that's the next point, which is esteem, right? So self-esteem, which, I'm sure we'll have a whole episode about that one of these days. But the next dimension is esteem. And esteem, like self-esteem, it's defined as how you feel about you. And that's it. Like, it's how you feel about yourself. So again, if I experience a trauma and something happens to me, then I'm not worthy, right? I'm not worthy of good things happening to me. I'm not worthy of people being good to me at all because of this one thing that happens. And again, I just want to, like, one thing has the power to, or can have the power, we're not giving it the power, but it can have the power to shift all of this to the negative. So if I don't, and also if I don't believe, if this thing happened to me and it challenged my safety, I don't trust myself, I feel like I have no power or control over anything, I don't feel good about myself. I don't feel good about myself, and then I'm really not functioning, because
Mm-hmm.
then and being good to myself looks like a good night's rest. It looks like drinking water. It looks like getting your hair done. It looks like, okay, you know what I'm saying? My little retwist last week, right? But it looks like just not taking pride in yourself, for whatever that may look like. So those are little things, just to again push against those thoughts, even if it's something as small and you're really like on the really really low end of capacity. It could look like something as small as washing your face, right? Just getting out of bed, washing your face and brushing your teeth. Even if you do that and get back in the bed, we're gonna try something else the next day. Like, it's the what ways am I taking care of myself? And also giving your brain more evidence of different outcomes. Sometimes when traumas happen, it's like this is the end. It's not the end. Once you have life, anything is possible. Anything
Mm-hmm.
is possible. So those are just different, other ways that like that the traumas can negatively affect your functioning.
Yeah, and even with esteem, I really want to I don't know the word, but parents, like the
Mhm.
role that parents play
Oh
in
yeah.
creating their child's self-esteem is huge. I have, I guess you guys know, I work at alternative school. I work with 18 to
Mhm.
24-year-olds. And a lot of it breaks my heart, because sometimes it's more of the male students than the females, but a lot of my male students feel powerless, feel hopeless, feel like they can't achieve anything, have like very low self-esteem and confidence because
Mhm.
of the things that their parents had said to them.
Right. Yep.
Like, one, it was already traumatic. just their upbringing, being kicked out multiple times, the areas that they live in, the relationships or non-existent relationships that they have with their mom or their dad, but then also the way that the active parent is still talking to them.
Yep.
That they only have their mom, and she keeps talking about how they're just like their dad who is not in their life, their dad who she does not like. So really with, but I mean children, but then also just people around us, like
Yeah.
really be aware of the things that we're saying. Like I remember, it's funny because I heard it on the radio at some point. I really don't even listen to the radio, but it said something like, when you say negative things to like your children, it doesn't make them not love you, it makes them not love themselves.
Correct.
So like we really have to be aware of the things that we're saying to people, especially when we know the environments that they're coming up in,
Yeah.
because it really impacts their
It
self-esteem.
does. It does. And so when you're born, just in general, like from the time a baby is born and we go into the newborn stage or whatever the case, like, and they cry, they can't talk yet. So that's how they communicate. They cry. From the time you're born, you're trying to trust. You're trying to figure out like what's going on because you came out of a womb that was nice and safe, right? It was warm and cozy in there. And now we're out into this world and it's like, what's going on? It's a shock. It's a shock.
Ghetto.
It's just ghetto.
0 stars.
0 stars. Like, it's crazy out here. But from the time a baby is born, like even when like if a baby cries, right? Like they make the jokes like, imagine you're a baby, you can't talk, and you have like a itch in the middle of your back, and now they're changing your diaper, like, or they're feeding you because it's like, no, I have an itch in my back. But either way, a baby, it understands I'm being taken care of. So when I cry, they respond to me this way. Like there's literally studies of children who were left like neglected, crying and just like left for, and I'm not talking about self-soothing, like when we let the baby self-soothe, I'm talking about just left crying. Like they have behavioral issues because subconsciously they're not safe.
Mm-hmm.
They're not safe. Kids already have intrusive thoughts, they sit at the edge of the bed and decide like, you know what, let me just see what'll happen if I jump. Exactly. Let me just see what'll happen if I jump. But like imagine all of those with a negative connotation. So and then that's where behavior comes in, and it's children don't have the language, they speak through behavior. So but that's just the bigger point of like with your children, be kind to them, like they just got here, a lot of them. Like, and even sometimes the adults, they weren't treated as if they just got here, so technically they just got here too. So
Mm-hmm.
it's but if you just already decide like I can't, if my mind is already in that place, then that's just what it's gonna look like.
Yeah, and I want to add too, like the statistics said that 70% of people have at least experienced one traumatic thing. So like learning that we only get 4 so far, but learning how these 5 things are impacted by that, it makes me also want to bring up social media.
Mm,
So these people are already struggling, and then now you're in their comment just being mean for the fun of it.
mhm.
Like we have to do a better job of taking care of
Yeah,
each other, of
yeah,
being more mindful and intentional of the things that we say, because it matters.
it does.
People are struggling. People do not have the coping skills. People do not have the support system that they need to overcome, or even the finances. We talked about, how your finances impact the level of therapy and support that you could get.
Mhm.
Like, we have to be more mindful of these things and really create just a safer space, maybe physically and just emotionally, for people. So I really want to charge you guys again. I know I'm telling y'all to do a lot of things,
I know,
but
right?
really just be intentional about the things that you also put on social media. You don't
Yeah,
know. Sometimes people make a joke of it, like that would have been my 13th reason. For some people, that could be their 13th reason of why they don't want to be here no more, because you was bored and left a nasty comment when
right,
somebody was literally already struggling to, overcome their trauma and these 5 things that we're talking about.
right. And even further, like when it comes to the comments and stuff, it's not even just comments, it's what you say out of your mouth. Like a lot of times I found myself even asking people, like, was that helpful? Was that helpful? Like, is what you have to say helpful, or is it just something you felt like you had to say? Like, you felt like your lips was going to combust if you didn't say it. Like, how was that helpful? So, even same
Yeah.
thing with the typing. Like, how is that helpful?
And I don't want to put her business out here, but that is something that me and my mom had to deal with.
Mm,
Having Caribbean parents,
yeah.
they say anything.
Wait, but
Like,
that's who I was talking about when I said that. It was my mom. It was my mom. Because
but
that's why when I say I found it with people, I really meant my mom. So yeah.
having Caribbean parents, Caribbean family members, like, it's hard. They
Not for
say
the weak boy.
anything. They say anything, and of course now at 31 I'm able to do this. I didn't do this at 16, but really helping her challenge the things that she says. So,
Right.
like, okay, she said something, and I would say, okay, so how am I supposed to feel now? How am I supposed to internalize that?
Yeah.
Like, if I was having a rough day, what did that do?
Right.
And really helping her think about it, because sometimes we don't think about it. We have to remember that
Right.
they grew up in a generation where, sticks and stones will break my bones, your words will never hurt me. So they really think that they can say whatever and it doesn't have a lasting impact. So you
Yeah.
sometimes you have to, based on their relationship and the tone of voice, like, I'm never going to say disrespect your parents or anything
Right.
like that,
Right.
but be able to have that conversation. And, like, sometimes, like, now we can kind of do it in the moment, but at first it was like, oh, can I talk to you? I need to talk. Can I talk to you about something you said yesterday? It's
Right.
like, okay, I was going through this, and then you said this. Did you think about how that would make me feel, or
Mhm.
what was your intentions of, like, how that would make me feel? And sometimes it's like, I didn't even think that far. Like, it just came to mind, and I said it. And
Exactly.
it's like, yeah, but that had a lasting impact on me. I went in my bed and I cried last night, or,
Right.
so having those conversations, because sometimes people don't know, and
They
people
don't
don't
know.
do it intentionally. Like, I know, without, beyond whatever, shadow doubt, all the things, my mother loves me and would do whatever she can for me,
Correct.
but that does not mean that she never hurt me.
Yes.
But
Which is
because
a
she loves me, we are able to have those conversations. So I
exactly.
really challenge you guys again,
Yeah.
to
But that's
have the
perfect to
conversation,
what
because
you were
sometimes
saying.
people don't know.
Right. But that's perfect to what you were saying earlier about other relationships. Like that's the perfect example. Like people will hurt you. If it's one thing you can depend on is that they're going to hurt you. Like and it's not that I'm expecting it so that I can go down a negative rabbit hole, but they're human. So the same way that I have the potential to hurt somebody, they have the potential to hurt me too.
Mhm.
But again, we have to have our feelings and then let certain things pass and then communicate. But yeah, that's me and my mom. So like the most recent example is like my hair. Some Caribbean folks, like when it comes to locks, like it's just, yeah, if you know, you know, right? But like when they were growing out, like I always kept my hair short. I always had a pixie cut, like, and even, but it's so funny because I tell her, I'm like, when I used to cut my hair and I would have it like just like flat, she's like, oh, you're always wearing your hair flat. If I wore a weave, it was, oh, that's so long. If I now I have locks and it's growing out, and she's like, well, when are you gonna do your hair? My hair is done, girl. Like I woke up like this, like it's done. So, but it was one time where that stage where it's just looking a little crazy, right? Like, and I remember I think I had slept wrong, and then like some of them were like sticking up. So like, and then I work virtually, so I remember like I was in my sessions all day and talking with people, and I would just kind of like do one of these, to kind of flatten it out. And I took a break and I went to go sit outside with her, and she just was going in. She was like, "And what's going on? This, that, and the third." And the rest of the day was so hard for me. Like, and usually when I'm in session, I don't even look, like I make myself small in the corner and I'm looking at the person. But now I got the screen half and half, and I'm like, oh my God, do I look crazy? I can't concentrate. And after that, I told her, I said, this is the last time I'm going to say, if you do not have something nice to say about my hair, please do not say anything. I have eyes. I know what it looks like. If I like it, I like it. Like that's, and I really just had to have that conversation with her. And obviously, like now it's all longer and stuff, so it's easier. Like, oh, yes, your hair is so nice and stuff. But it's just being able to have those conversations because
Yeah.
yeah, that really pissed me off that time. But I have that type of relationship with her where I'm like, girl, let me talk to you because like what? Like, what are we doing? So, but you have to be able to have the conversation. So,
Yeah,
but
the way you
I,
say matters.
yeah,
You have to
what
be
you have
intentional and
to,
and accountable for the words that you say and
right.
how those words might change a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
intentionally or not. The words
Intentional
you say
or
change
not.
relationships.
Because also too, if you say something and you did not mean for it to affect that person, please don't get defensive. Oh, well, that's not what I meant. Actually, I don't, because I felt the way, which is why I'm saying it. So it's again, you can't. You can't defend your bad behavior. Like you can't defend if you said something that hurt somebody or that offended somebody. And it can't be this like, oh well, now I can't say anything and all of that. Like those are decisions that you'd be making on yourself when someone's trying to communicate to you. So yeah, just
Because I
I'm
want to be clear that that's trauma too. Like trauma
yeah.
isn't just the physical things or the house burnt
Hmm.
down or the car accident.
Hmm.
Those things that you're constantly hearing that's just like killing you on the inside. Like sometimes for people, it's hard to keep going through that. Like your brain is in that constant survival mode, trying to figure out how do I want to live? How do I want to go forward when I'm just constantly hearing that I'm not good enough, I'm not worth it, or I'm not worth anything. Like that is traumatic.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's not just the physical thing. So again, be very intentional with the things that you say to each other, to yourself, and also to children,
Yep.
your children or somebody else's children, whoever. Um, because it can put people in a survival mode, or just it can really impact people's minds.
Exactly. So the last stage is, which we've kind of covered literally through all of this, is intimacy. And intimacy is not just based on like sexual relationships, it's on any relationships. So if again, if I'm starting with if something happens to me, I don't feel safe, I can't trust myself, I'm not in control, I don't feel good about myself, what does that look like in relationship with other people? I'm not going to feel like I'm worthy of relationships. I'm going to feel like I'm not good enough because all these other things have happened. So the distorted pattern again that we reframe and replace is that I am worthy of relationships. I'm worthy of friendships. I belong to somebody in, in even as a friend, and others belong to me in that way, not in a possessive way. Let me be careful saying that. But yeah, not in a possessive way, but that it's intimacy and just being able to like reframe the thoughts of like because intimate with intimacy, all of those things go into it. I can't control other people, I have to figure out how to trust other people. I of course want to be in relation with people that I feel safe with. So if I internalize all of those things and make sure again that I'm asking myself the questions or dealing with the things that Janice is charging us with today, okay, then it looks different with even with myself. And then I'm able to have like close and intimate relationships with other people.
Yes, I'm going to try not to do any more charges, but can't make any promises.
I mean, you got listen, it's like therapy. In therapy, you get homework. In therapy,
Yeah,
you get
and
homework.
because my biggest thing is, or like, I think part of our reason for this podcast
Hmm.
is, the saying like, when you knew, if you knew better, you'll do better. So now there's no excuse
Right.
to certain behavior anymore, because we are intentionally giving you um just the information, the education, the experience, the other side of things, just additional things to think about. So the hope really is that, getting this information helps you make a change in your life, not
Yeah.
because my life is better than anybody's life or I'm here to
Right.
tell you about your life, but just because I do want everyone to be at peace and everyone to have some type of joy and happiness and live their best life. Like that was a saying at one point, that everybody living their best life, but were we really?
Were we really?
you
Were
know
we?
but I think now, like with all the growth and the, like how we did last time, like cutting down the stigmas, giving the education, now like you really have the ability to
Yeah.
so now really your choice. So the charges might stay, but
Yeah, no,
maybe
they're definitely
limit
gonna
them.
stay. They're gonna stay. They're gonna stay for sure. And I agree with that, especially the part where it's like I don't think my life is better than anybody's, but I feel like not but I like when I was in school and I'm like learning, you're learning coping skills and stuff. Like I remember like sitting there and being like, why doesn't everybody know this? Like I just like it would blow my mind the things that I'm like, well, what well, we and now I will say it's a lot better now. At least from when I used to work with kids, like I would, do things like the 5 4 3 2 1 method, like cognitive triangle and stuff like that. And some of the kids would say, like, oh, we did this in health class. And I would be like, oh, thank you, Jesus. Thank you.
Mm.
Empower the babies. Like, like I mean it would be rare, but they would have it. And I think that it's so important because nobody that like when a baby is born and they say, oh, there's no rule book, there's no guidebook for the rest of it either. Like, as far as like, well, what do you do if something happens? Like there I mean, what? So yeah, we're definitely gonna, charge you guys with some stuff. So but
And we'll find like A cool name for the charges.
Yeah,
Um,
we'll come up with something.
right. Our bestie.
Yeah. Yep. So those are the five dimensions just to keep in mind. Again, it's safety, trust, power and control, intimacy, and self-esteem, not in any order, but those are the five dimensions that are affected when in a trauma. And just keeping in mind, again, trauma creates distortions. It affects you physically, it affects you mentally, spiritually, it affects you in every way that it possibly could. So those are the five dimensions, and just like the most important thing is just to be mindful of them, and with everything that we're saying, and again, just take a breather, guys. I know this is a lot of information. But it's for you to digest. And also, don't forget, any questions you have, anything you don't understand, please, 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 you can message us on Instagram, YouTube, however, so that we can discuss. So
So now we're kind of talk about some strategies to like overcoming your trauma. Of course, this does not excuse going to therapy or anything like that, but
right.
this is just some things to be mindful of or things that you could do in addition to therapy. So I think one of the main interventions that we kind of use of therapy is DBT, dialectic behavioral therapy, and that includes four main concepts. So the first one is mindfulness, and we kind of spoke about them already, but I just want to reiterate them. So the
Mhm.
first one is mindfulness, and really what that just means is kind of slowing down and noticing like your thoughts and your feelings in different situations, being aware of how you feel while something is happening. So this is something that you can do, but also teaching your child or the people around you to do. One of the main activities is like the five like grounding yourself. So think about your five senses. Like what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What do you feel? What do you taste? What are you touching? Like all of those things to really help yourself be present and
Yes.
be aware of your feelings.
Yeah. Mindfulness is being where your feet are, because the anxiety also comes in forms of the brain jumping from different time periods. So it's supposed to exist in the present, and not in a way of like just me thinking what I have to do later, but thinking about what happened a year ago, what happened an hour ago, what's going to happen tomorrow, what about a year from now. And now my brain is jumping, and now my body feels like it's under attack, so I have to pause, be where my feet are, doing those
Yeah.
types of exercises. And that's what I mentioned earlier with the 5 4 3 2 1 method, which is go with your senses. Five things you can see, four things you can touch, three things you can taste, touch, and feel. 3 2 and so if you have five things that you can taste, you do that. You do it however it is. And another way I say it too is like the 3 2 1 method. So because five can be, depending on how you're feeling, it can be overwhelming. If you have three things you can see, two things you can touch, one thing you can taste, you can do it that way, and just allow yourself to be where your feet are, and re-engage with whatever it is that's bothering you, and understand that sometimes when you calm yourself down and you re-engage with whatever the thing is, you may shoot right back up. And what you do the exercise again, you do it again and again and again until you have built a tolerance for it.
Yeah. So the second one is emotional regulation, and that's really just like understanding. So mindfulness helps you understand what you're feeling or like be aware of the feelings, and then emotional regulation helps you understand and manage those feelings. And it's
Right.
also about like noticing patterns. So
Mhm.
when I'm hungry, I'm irritated faster. So just really getting a full understanding of your feelings and how they impact your behavior, and just managing that relationship with a certain feeling that you're feeling and what it causes.
Yeah. And it's also the warning signs too. Like with what you like, the best warning sign is like my stomach grumbles, that means I'm hungry. Or I have an attitude, it means I might need something to eat. Like just being aware, and again being mindful in your warning signs so that you can take care of yourself before you are fully triggered.
Yes. The third one is your distress tolerance. So these are skills that kind of help you get through hard times,
Mhm.
without doing something that will make the situation worse, or like crashing out, basically what they say now.
Yeah.
Um, So having those coping skills, having those supports in place, or like having access to them, so that
Mhm.
you're able to get through harder times again without making the situation worse.
And also just remembering what we were saying earlier about having habits. So if I have these habits, if these are things that I do already, then when I'm triggered, my adrenaline is kicking in, my the cortisol levels are off the charts. I have that thing that I can go to already. I have it. I don't have to panic and figure out what do I do? What do I do? I already have these skills.
Yes. And then the last one is interpersonal effectiveness. So we kind of spoke about this with our parents. So
Mhm.
having those conversations or having those words to, or like at one point people were saying, what was the code word? Pineapples.
Yes.
So like being able to say like, okay, this is too much. I'm
Mhm.
overstimulated. I'm triggered. Whatever the things is, like I don't like this. I need help. I need a moment.
Yes.
I need some alone time. So having those skills with yourself, or having those skills to identify how you're feeling, but even being able to advocate for yourself in those situations to kind of help you calm down. Because again, your brain is becoming or going into survival mode. So having the things to say to kind of bring you back down, to remove you
Right.
from the situation, and also being in an environment of people that you can trust, or that values what you say, so they
Right.
would sometimes it's so interesting because sometimes you would advocate and say like I need a minute, and people like okay but no, there's no but. I need a minute, so I'm going to remove myself. So,
Mhm.
and again, being aware of how people are responding to you, because now maybe our access changed because I know when I'm triggered, you're not respecting that. So
Right.
that goes with what we're saying earlier. Like, I trust myself to know enough that, I need a moment. I'm advocating for that. But now I know I can't trust you that much because you don't value when I say I need a break.
Right. I was also going to add that as far as like the interpersonal part requires communication. So if it's, I tell especially couples, I'll tell them like because you usually you have one person who is like, no, I need to talk this out right now, or and the other person who's like, I actually need to calm down. So and then the person who where we need to calm down, they usually, for lack of a better term, win. And then but the issue never is discussed again. So for the person who needs to talk about it right now, it's compromising with the other person. And for the person who needs a minute, for it to actually be a minute and not a day or a month or a year later. So I always say like honestly 24 hours. You have like less than 24 hours. If it's late at night and we need to sleep it off, we can talk in the morning. Or if it's like where we have a break, literally, let's not talk about this for an hour. And I say an hour because it takes the body 15 minutes to calm down if you're trying. So imagine if you're not trying. If you're not trying, it's gonna be, it's gonna be harder. So give it an hour. Allow yourself to, because you know what happens too, like with people. I know we've all had those times where we will say, oh man, I should have said that. Like when I was arguing with somebody, or I should have, like, and the moment has passed. But part of the problem is that we do not give ourselves the time for our capacity to increase, for ourselves to calm down, and for other thoughts take take up space. All that's taking up space is my feelings. Feelings
Mhm.
are not fact. Feelings are true to me. They do not define a situation. So that's another, communication is a big part of the interpersonal part, where like again, like Janice was saying earlier, like now I can say certain things in the moment. Before it was like, hey, so remember yesterday when you said that? Like then we can go and discuss it. But we don't want to be bringing up things like, well the last time, and now we're in like, now it's a week later, like, girl, I don't remember what happened last week. So it's just being able to remember that communication.
Yeah, and I think what you said is big too about like relationships, like making sure that you all find the middle ground for your relationship. So
Mhm.
if it's 24 hours for y'all, 6 hours, whatever, but make sure that you include time for both of you to calm down so that you can focus on the issue and you're not just saying like just word vomiting, like just all the feelings and the thoughts and just
Yep.
everything. Like you had a bad day, so now everything's coming out. Like you're able to be effective and like really think about what the issue is, what are the feelings, what did it cause. Because I think sometimes with communication we think because we're saying things that we're communicating effectively, and that's not the truth. Like just because your mouth is moving does not mean that you're making the situation better, or
Correct.
that you're communicating and now you're doing a great thing.
Mhm.
um So really take the time to, again, be intentional about your communication,
Right.
and understanding that communicating isn't just with your words, it's with your body language and your body and everything like that. But then also for the other person, making sure that you're listening and not, like
Yeah.
we talked about before, not listening to defend yourself, or just to respond, but really understanding what this person is saying, not to validate, or like, not, well, not validate, not because um, it's like 100% true, but just so that you have the empathy to really understand what they're trying to go through, not to change your mind or because you
Right.
need to change your mind, but really just completely like listen to understand this other perspective.
Yeah, and
Um,
understand that two things can be true at once. That's the thing where it's like what you're saying is where conflicts come in because, like you said, people, it's like, well, you're not going to change my mind. That may not be the person's intention.
I'm
They
not
just
trying to change your
want
mind. I want you to hear me.
exactly that part. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, I know this is a lot. There's a lot of like dimensions and skills, and we'll of course keep discussing these. And if you have any questions, like please write them out so that they can be addressed either directly or like we'll do other episodes or whatever the case. But just be very careful because this is a lot. And again, if you listen to this episode and feel like, oh my God, that's me for an hour or however long this episode is, calm down. Breathe easy. There's nothing wrong with you. We're all trying to figure it out, but just understand, like Janice was saying, it's like, okay, if I have these things, part of the reason we're talking about this is because there's a solution. It's not just to point out what the problem is. There's a solution to everything that we're talking about. So just breathe easy and take it one step at a time.
Yes, and definitely, follow us on our different social media pages. We are also going to share some of the different activities and skills and things that we talked about in more like a picture form,
Yes.
if that's helpful. But I do want you all to be mindful that a lot of the work is not work that we recommend doing on your own. We are definitely here to share skills and information, but at the same time, we definitely recommend getting a therapist or getting the supports that you need in your everyday life to navigate the things that you've been through or whatever mental health challenges you might be having, because
Mhm.
it can be dangerous to try to solve all these things on your own or do all these things on your own if you don't have that, when you don't have that support.
Agreed.
All right, so now to wrap up, let's get into our shirts. What does
Yes.
your shirt say today,
My
Kiana?
shirt says all behavior is a form of communication. It's like a little lower today, but yes. All behavior is a form of communication. And when I say all, I mean all. So that means action, inaction, intention, intended action, mistakes. It is a form of communication. Specifically, like we were saying, in children don't have the language. So if they're misbehaving, is it that they're just bad, or are they sad and they don't know how to tell you that? So then they knock everything over. It's a form of
Mhm.
communication.
And give grace too, because I think some adults don't have the communication skills. So,
Hello.
again, pay attention. I don't know. So the first thing that came to mind was like, when people are dating, is like, oh, he didn't respond. He did.
He did.
He responded.
He
It
did.
wasn't words, but you got a response.
You got to
Like,
respond.
with the not responding. Like,
Exactly.
that says
Exactly.
something.
Hmm.
So really paying attention to not just what people are saying out of their mouth, but like you said, the actions, the everything.
Could say anything. I could tell you that I could take you to the moon. And if you don't see me trying to reach out to NASA, like, girl, I'm not taking you to the moon.
Yeah.
Like, behavior is a form of communication. Okay. So, what are you saying over there, Janice?
So my shirt says good vibes. Oh, can you see it?
There we go.
Good vibes. Because again, like we said before, the statistics, 70% of people have been through a traumatic experience. So, people have been through things. So really be cautious of, the vibes that you give off, the
Mhm.
environment, or like how you contribute to the environment for some people. Intentionally just having good vibes, a good space really makes a difference. I think about my job again, and I notice like sometimes it's staff in my room, just like I need a moment, where
Yeah.
the room was kind of created for my students, but Just having those good vibes for people who just everybody needs it. But then also as the individual, like really being aware of the vibes that your friend gives off. Maybe
Mhm.
they're not your friends. Maybe these aren't the people that you can handle right now based on what's going on with you mentally.
Mhm.
So just again, be a good vibe and share a good vibe.
Yes. Yes. Be the change, or be the vibe you want to see. Be the
Yes.
vibe you want to see. Lead by example, okay? All right. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and follow us. Again, I know I keep saying through this whole episode, like, write your questions and take it easy. Okay. So see you
Yeah.
guys next time.
And I do want to add too, if you're not comfortable sharing your questions on YouTube, you could feel free to DM the page, DM us
Yeah.
personally. If you're not comfortable doing that, we'll still make sure that we get to
You
you too.
know, and what I will do too, because I want to figure out how we, like, people can share things anonymously. I know, like, I don't know how to do that on Instagram, but we'll figure it out. So we'll figure it out. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Bye.